Sechta bava basra daf nun hey Amar Aleph. We're starting from 8 lines on the top, the last narrow line. Amar Rabba Hanit last mili yishtayli ukvan banechem reish gelis mishmeit shmol. These following 3 dinim ukvan relayed. Ukvan banechem reish gelis relayed. Gave over these 3 dinim. Din of the Malchus Adina. The first one is of Din of Malchus Adina. Like we learned early on in the Daled Amud Beis, we brought down in the others that the chayk was that the government was allowed to go into other people's rishus to cut logs in order to build bridges, and the people who use the public who use the bridges, it wasn't even of Geneva because that's part of the din of Malchus Adina. That in Persia, the Klal Rashbam says that the way properties were transferred was to a star. If he was there for 40 years, that takes the place of a star. And if a Yid bought from this guy who was there for 40 years, the mechira is a good mechira. Even though another Yid comes and says this guy who was there for 40 years stole it from him, it's going to be a good mechira. But if that's when you're dealing with a guy in between. But if it was only between 2 Yidden, the Persian government wouldn't mix into the halachas between Yidden, and 3 years would be a chazaka. That's how the Rashbam ends off. So another outcome. These wealthy, as the people who own their states, own the karka, who bought off tax liens to acquire the karka as vinu. The buy is a buy, and the original owner of the property can't come and say, I want to pay you back the taxes you paid. No, it's a good mechida. So these words said litaska. When it came to a tax lien on property, but when it came to a head tax, then the kinyan is not a full kinyan, meaning that if the yid comes back and he wants to pay back the head tax, he has the money not to pay it back, he could get back his property. By time, what's the reason? Karka, the Gavri Banach, because the paying the taxes is a head tax, and it's not on the property. And even though when a person holds back from paying the head tax, they can throw him in jail till he pays, but they don't have the koyach to take away his property. And if they did sell his property, he has the right to buy back his property through paying back the head tax to whoever paid for him. Even those barleys that are placed in a jug, and this is not referring to a field. The field, of course, we're talking about the barley still connected to the field. Here we're talking about a barley that was placed in a jug, to which corresponds to metaltlin mishtapel karga, mishubadim. For the head, everything is mishubit connected to the head taxes. It belongs to the government. Rabashi said, said to me, Kashba Ameima. Ameima had the following question. If so, if all the rechushim, all the properties belong mishubit to the king, if he didn't pay as of yet the head tax, batalta, you bring mevatel in that melucha, the din of the Yerusha b'nai Abacheir, of a Yerusha of a Becheir. Where do we see the Yerusha of a Becheir? What's the din by Yerusha Becheir? That a Becheir gets Pishnayim. But the Havalei, Roi, but this is only called a Roi, and a Becheir doesn't get Pishnayim in something that's able to come to the father after his death. A Becheir doesn't take Pishnayim in what's able to come to him after his death, like a person who has already in his possession property. That's where the Becheir gets Pishnayim, not in something that it's able to come to his father after his death. There, the son does not get Pishnayim, because the Torah says that Pishnayim B'Yerushas Aviv is Dafke Asher Yimatzei Loi, only in those Nechasim that the father was a Muchzik while in his lifetime. But moment that's supposed to come to his father after Misa, the Becheir doesn't get Pishnayim. So the Gemara Amalei Ravashi said to Lahuna Rav Nasni Hachib, so that moment Amishubit is lekarga afilu. So and there's no and that's Yishai. We're being mevatel. The din of Pishnayim for a Becheir by Yerusha. In fact, Gemara, that's you're only asking there because karga. There's a mandama there's only one mandama that says that the head tax is mishabit all the persons nechasim. That's only according to one mandama. But letaska, where everybody agrees that the tax lien belongs, the karka belongs to the government until he pays up the tax lien. What could you say? And if you wanted the year of Tasco Miss, you're talking about that he paid the taxes, and that's where it's shaykh that the father is a mursik and the b'chei gets pishnayim. Hachanami holds here too by the head tax. We'll learn the year of karga that he prepaid the head tax of Miss and then he died, and now it's shaykh of pishnayim for b'chei, and the father is a mursik because he prepaid the head tax. I have asked this Seifrim of Rav that they wrote studies for the Bezdin, Rabbi, and they said Hilchas Rav Huna B'rei Rav Yeshua. The halach is like Rav Huna B'rei Rav Yeshua that all nechasim of a person are meshubed to the head tax. And the truth is, it's not so. There was only to be mekayim their words, meaning these Sofrim were accustomed to writing studies on selling on karka that was sold for the head tax. So in order to validate their studies, so they said the halach Yeshua that the sale is a sale because they wrote the studies for them. But lamitase, it's not so. The halach is not so. The halach is not like Avodah B'nei Yeshua. Rather, the din is the nechasim are not meshubit to the head tax. Well, but Rabashi also said, Padach, the person who is bought legamri, when he doesn't do any work and also doesn't learn Torah, because somebody who learns Torah might not be mechuyev to participate in the head tax. Messiah must he has to participate in the taxes together with the rest of the city. When were these words said that he has to participate? Like when the government came demanding from him money, and they were gonna put him in jail. So the whole city intervened for him and said he doesn't have money. Please leave him alone. So the rest of the city paid a higher tax for his chelik. So then he's mechuyev to compensate either with physically working or paying back the money when he has. Avlandiski, but what if those that came to collect passed over him? Either they thought he's a bottle or whatever. So Siyat Lishmayim, so the Hashem has his assistance, and he doesn't have to participate in paying back the taxes, because Hashem helped him that he shouldn't have to pay the taxes. Amar Avasi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Hametzah, by a to the Nechse of a ger who died, he's Nechas Mahefker, and his part of the karka had a marker around the Givul, which was between two properties. So the halach is, if somebody makes a chazak in one of them, he's not going to be a mursik in the other karka as well. And with dafke machmir by chazak, it won't help for the next karka. And the Ashban brings down, because there's a shita Shmuel who says that even if somebody stuck a spade and made a chazaka in one of the karkais, he's only kind of the place of the spade. So we see by karka we're machmir that he can make easily a chazaka, and especially making a chazaka in one field to be kind of the second field. Avalin Yepeya Betuma Loy, it's not considered as two separate fields. Yasa Rabin, when Rabin came to Bava from Yisrael, he said differently in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Amma, he said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Afilu Peya Lepeya Ut Betuma. Even for Peya and Tuma, it's going to have a din like two separate fields, and we're going to explain that he's going to have to leave Peya for each field. That according to Ravasi, it's one field for Peya and Tuma. So therefore, you only have to leave Peya in one of the fields, in the corners of one of the fields for the Aniyim. But according to Ravin says it has a din as two separate fields for Peya, and therefore you're going to have to leave Peya in each field separately. In fact, you want to Peya Mai. What's the case of Peya? What's that hefsek? Elam hafsek and Peya. These are markers that will separate the fields for the dinim of Peya, that you should have to do the mitzvah Peya in each field individually. Nachal. So the Ashbam says Nachal is either the hard land like they had by the Pashas of Egla Aruf, that after the fruitful land, there was a hard piece of land, and then came the other land. That's a hefsek. Or Nachal can mean Nachlei Mayim, a river of water. And a shlulis is rainwater that was gathered in one place, or a bank of water that served to many fields. That's going to be considered as a hefsek between two kakois. Or there was like a street, a wide street of 16 ames between the two Sundays, or v'derech reshus hayachid, or which the derech reshus hayachid is 16 ames, or v'derech reshus hayachid, or if it was a street for reshus hayachid, which is only 4 ames wide, so the hashbam is. Let him just say derech reshus hayachid, which is much narrower, and it serves as a hefsek for sure, something that's much wider, like a reshus hayachid, that 16 ames should serve as a divider. So the hashbam answers that even though we could have learned out Taka from Reshus HaYachid, nevertheless, the Mishnah is learning about Derech Loizu Avzu. That he says not only Reshus HaRabim, which is 16 amas wide, will serve as a divider, that even Reshus HaYachid, which is only 4 amas wide. And what's the difference between a Derech Reshus HaRabim is where they go with wagons, drivers and wagons. And the Derech HaYachid is only for one driver and one wagon. Ushvil HaRabim is where people walk. A bunch of people walk without wagons. Ushvil HaYachid is a narrower path for the Yachid where only a few people walk. And it has to be a path that's not seasonal. It has to be Hakavu Be'yim 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 Be'yim. And this path has to be able to be used in the summer, in the winter months in order to separate it, be used as a divider. What's the din by Tumah? That we learned in the Mishnah, one who enters into a valley which has a din like a Reshus HaYachid. The din is Safik to Reshus HaRabim is L'Kula. Safik to Reshus HaYachid is L'Chumra. There was a cave, one of the fields in the valley, a bit Tumah beside the plains. There was Tumah in a specific field, a cave in a specific field. The and he said, I know for sure I entered this Bika, this valley of fields. I don't know if I entered that field which the cave is in. V'imlav or not. Rabbi Lezer says he's Torah Chacham V'Tamim, and the Chacham say he's Tamim. So B'chlal, the Chacham, Rabbi Lezer holds a Sveik Bayi. Reshus HaYachid you'll be Torah. And Chacham say no matter how many Sveikis it is, in Reshus HaYachid you'll always be Tamim. But in Rabbi Lezer there will be a Machlekes. If it's two fields, if there was a field with markers, if it's going to be considered as two fields or not. Shai Rabbi Lezer would say suffix be number one. It's a suffix if he even entered that field where the keva is, and then even if he entered the field, who says he was touched the keva or he's malala keva? So it's a suffix tahir. He's tahir. Because it's suffix bia, and then it's suffix mago masa. It's a suffix even if he even touched it. But Chacham will always say even by a suffix he's tummy. So according to Rabbi Lezer, according to Rabbi Lezer, we had the machlekes between Rabbi Asi in the name of Yechlin and Rabbi Avin. Rabbi Asi says that if there were the markers, it's considered as two separate fields. And therefore, it's a suffix bia, it's a suffix even if he entered the field where there was a keva. And then it's a second suffix if he touched it. But according to Ravin, that it's all considered as one field. We only have one suffix if he was mile over the keva or he touched the keva. But whichever it was only one suffix. And therefore, according to Ravin, we would go lechumra. Well, Shabbos loy. He says, but if the gate of the Shabbos also, it's not going to be considered as two separate fields. Rav Amar Afilu Shabbos. Rav argues. He says even when the gate of the Shabbos has a din like two separate fields. Tanya that we learned in the Braisa in the gate of Shabbos, in order that a malacha should be a malacha, has to be a malacha machshavas. Has to be a chashva malacha. Chashva malacha is that if it's for a tzah to carry from one rishus to another, it has to be a full dried fig. If it was only half a fig that he brought in from one rishus to another, he didn't do the malacha of a tzah. So here he brings you a case. The Braisa Hoitzi Chatzi Gegeres Lishus Harabim. He took out from the Reshus HaYachid to Reshus HaRabim a half a dried fig. And then he took out another half a dried fig. With one helam, he didn't notice that he did a sin till after he brought in both half of Gegeres Chayiv. Only then will he be Chayiv for the whole fig. and for the melacha of Eitzah. But if he did a b'shnei halames, if there was a yedi ben time, let's say he took out a half a dry fig from the Shusayach to the Shusarabim, and he became aware that he did it, and then he did it again on another half a fig, then the pot is potter. Rabbi Yosema, even by Behelam Echad, where we said before, he's chayiv, is only b'shusachas. Only if it wasn't one rishus, then he's going to be chayiv. But b'shtei rishus is potter. But if it was two separate rishus, he's going to be potter. And Rabbi said, the only way that he's going to be chayiv, a chayiv, for bringing combining the two chatzig is only if. I'm sorry. The only time that he's going to be potter if he brought one chatzig ageres in the Rishus Rabbin, another chatzig ageres in another Rishus Rabbin, and we consider the Rishus Rabbin as two Rishuyas, is only if there is a Rishus like a Rishus Hayachid in between the two Rishus Rabbim, and he took from the Rishus Hayachid and put it on the right side of the Rishus Rabbim, and then he took from the Rishus Hayachid and he put it on the left side of the Rishus Rabbim. So the left side of the Rishus Hayachid, which was also the Rishus Hayachid had two Rishus Rabbim on both sides of it. So the Rishus Hayachid is considered as a Chiyav Chatas because if you would carry it from the Rishus Rabbim to the Rishus Hayachid, you would be Chayav. So if you had a Rishus, such a Rishus in between the two Rishus Rabbim, only then it's a Hefsik. Because you're talking about a Rishus that if you would carry into the middle of the Rishus, you would be Chayav Chatas. Aval Karmelis. But what's if there was only a Karmelis in between these Rishuyas? So, in such a case, by a Karmelis, B'natera, a Karmelis is not considered as a Rishus on its own. Rather, it's bottled to the Rishus Rabbim or bottled to the Rishus Hayachid. It's not used as much as a Rishus Rabbim. It's not mamish like a Rishus Hayachid. But you're not chayiv min ha'Torah, chayiv chatas if you carried from the Rishus Rabbim to the Karmelis or from the Rishus Hayachid to the Karmelis. So if there was a Rishus HaKarmelis in middle of the Rishus Rabbim, it doesn't separate the Rishus Rabbim to the two Rishus Rabbims, because the Karmelis there's no chiyuv chatos if you carry from the Rishus Rabbim into the Karmelis. Abaya says no, even if a Karmelis is in between is in smack in the middle of the Rishus Rabbim, which divides the Rishus Rabbim, then it is considered as a hefsek. A piece of wood that's lower than 10 tvachim, even though it's 4 and 4 tvachim, or it's 10 tvachim high but less than 4 and 4 tvachim, it's not going to serve as a divider between the Rishus Rabbim. If it's a middle between the two Rishus Rabbim, it's not going to be considered as a divider. Rava says even a stick. Such a stick is going to be considered as a divider between the two Rishus Harabim. And Rava goes according to his reasoning. Rava said, Rishus Shabbos, Rishus Gittin. Rishus Shabbos has a din like the Rishus of Gittin. It says if a woman who the husband wants to give her a get, but he's using she's in his chutzner, and the Baal lent the Isha, his wife, the makim of his chatzah, in order that she should have a rishus in which she should be able to get divorced. He threw the get into that chatzah, but instead of landing on the chatzah, it landed on the stick. So the stick is not part of the chatzah, we said. Even though the stick is less than dollar tvachim, 10 tvachim high, or less than 10 tvachim, but 4 and 4 tvachim. Why? Nevertheless, it has a din like a rishus on its own, and it's not bottled to the chatzah. So if it's not bottled to the chatzah, so then it could be used as a divider.